There have been millions of people that have had ideas to start a business or to build some kind of startup or some company or whatever. The reality is there's a lot that you don't know, and there's still a lot more that you don't know that you don't know. Right? Like, there's so much out there that we're just not aware of. And I didn't realize this until I started building my startup. I realized that to start, there's just a lot of terms people throw around and I just don't know what the hell they're talking about. Like MVP and IPO and all of these different words. I was lost. I'm launching this show specifically because I know that I need to learn more, and I want to help other founders out there that are trying to learn as well. I think in the startup world, there's not really a podcast out there that's built for the beginner founder, like somebody that's just starting out, that's just building their company, that isn't profitable yet, hasn't gotten any funding, that didn't go to Stanford, right? Like, it's a lot of people that have ideas that don't fit into the perfect startup box. So if you're not the person that didn't come from Stanford or go to Harvard or know somebody that is living in Silicon Valley, how do you build that startup? How do you get these connections? How do you get funding? How do you start having these conversations and get to the right events and stuff? How does that happen? So that's really my goal here with the Startup Founder Roadmap, is to do interviews, number one, with successful founders, people that have successful companies, that have exited and sold successful companies, the venture capitalists that invest in companies and help them become successful. I want to have those people on our Founder Spotlight episodes to just share their insight and their knowledge, actually experienced people that have done the work. Not the coaches that are trying to sell you some program because they, made 10 grand once. I've been able to talk to a lot of those people that are on the side of profitability, that are making money, that have sold companies and stuff. And the way that both sides operate is completely different. And that's been helping me a lot on my journey. So I want to use this podcast to kind of share that with other people. I'm also doing something called startup definitions. Remember those keywords I was talking about? I have a list of about 200 that I myself have learned, and I'm still learning some. So I want to just make content around that to show you what it is. Because when you go and search for it, you'll probably find some super long, boring article that's going to give you a lot of BS that really doesn't answer your question. So I want to give you the definition and some examples and some other key tips that really go with that definition, like the MVP and what is it and how do you build that? Or with IPO, what is an initial public offering? Like, what does that even mean? It's a lot of stuff that we as founders have to learn, because when you figure these things out, it's going to help you be a better founder, number one. Number two, it's easier to get funding. So when you go and you talk to that venture capitalist, you can be more knowledgeable, right, about your company, about the industry, about all of it, just the whole process. Because it's really easy to kind of get scammed or miss out or get a bad deal or miss an opportunity simply because you just didn't know enough. So this show is mainly here to educate you and entertain you from that perspective of you're growing and consistently learning more. It's going to be a lot of information you receive that you just didn't know, that you're completely unaware of. Every person I've interviewed so far for this podcast has taught me something I did not know. And I love this part of the journey because it's forcing me to grow and evolve more. It's forcing me to look at things from a different perspective, and it's making me a better founder. So I'm super excited for this show. If you want to support the podcast, you can first start off by visiting our website, startupfounderpodcast.com, or hit me up on Twitter at Chris Podcast. I'm over there all the time, and I like talking about podcasting a lot, but also talk about startups and all of that stuff. The trending topics always come to Twitter first. So it's kind of like home base for a lot of founders. We're also on LinkedIn, Startup Founder Podcast, and go to YouTube, Startup Founder Podcast. We're going to have some exclusive content and some workshops and stuff. It's a lot planned. And again, I want to be clear, this isn't me setting this up because I'm this like know-it-all person of like expertise. I'm learning just like you're learning as an audience member. So think of me as the person that is speaking for you when I'm talking to these experts, right? So part of it too, I want you to be able to send in questions and stuff. And we're setting all that up on the website, startupfounderpodcast.com. And I'll be able to ask your questions to the guests that we have on the show. The plan is to have events and different workshops around the countries where I can bring in these experts, these VCs, these founders that have this experience, and they can just teach on a specific subject. So it might be MVP, it might be go to market, something like that, right? Something really low level at the beginner stages, because that's what a lot of people need help with. So I'm excited. Make sure you subscribe to support the show. I can't wait to see you on episode 1.